The mission had started like every other mission on the briefing board: clean, controlled, and low risk. That was the lie soldiers learned to recognize late. Private First Class Emma Carter sat strapped inside the vibrating belly of a military transport helicopter, her gear locked tight against her chest. Her squad was silent, each soldier locked in their own thoughts, eyes scanning maps and coordinates that meant nothing once you were actually inside the field. Outside the small armored window, the world was a vast green ocean. The Amazon rainforest stretched endlessly below them, thick, ancient, and alive in a way that felt almost hostile. "Objective is recon only," the pilot's voice crackled through the comms. "No engagement unless necessary." Emma adjusted her gloves. She had heard that line before. Unless necessary always found a way to become necessary. Then it happened. A sound changed everything. A low mechanical groan from the engine. Not loud at first, just a vibration, a subtle wrongness in the air. Emma's eyes shifted immediately. She wasn't the only one who noticed. Across the cabin, a sergeant leaned forward. "Pilot, you good up there?" No answer. The helicopter tilted slightly. Then again. Harder this time. A warning light flashed red across the cockpit panel. And then the world screamed. The engine exploded into a violent roar of failure. The helicopter lurched sideways like a wounded animal. Loose equipment flew through the cabin. Soldiers grabbed straps, shouting over each other. "Brace, brace." Emma's body slammed against her harness as the helicopter dropped. Trees rushed upward. Too fast. Too close. Impact wasn't a moment. It was a sequence of destruction. Metal tore against branches like paper ripping apart. The rotor blades shattered into the canopy. The sound was deafening, a mixture of grinding steel, snapping wood, and screaming alarms that cut off midair. Then fire. A flash of heat and light as fuel ignited in the wreckage. The helicopter crashed somewhere deep in the jungle basin, with a force that turned the world inside out. And then silence. Emma woke to darkness. Not full darkness. The kind broken by smoke, flickering firelight, and the shifting shapes of broken metal. Her ears rang violently, like the world itself was still screaming, but she couldn't hear it anymore. She tried to move. Pain answered first. Her shoulder burned. Her ribs felt like they had been compressed inward. Blood trickled from a cut near her temple, warm against her skin. Training kicked in before fear did. Assess, stabilize, move. Emma pushed herself upright, boots sinking into wet soil mixed with ash and shattered debris. The helicopter was scattered like a broken toy across the jungle floor. Parts of it still smoldered. A seat lay upside down 10 meters away. A cracked helmet rested half buried in mud. No movement. No voices. No teammates. "Sergeant," she called out, voice rough. Only the jungle answered. That's when she realized the worst part. The jungle wasn't quiet. It was listening. She slowly reached for her sidearm. Still there. Cold, real, comforting in a way nothing else was. Her fingers tightened around it. Then she heard it. A sound that didn't belong to metal or fire. A low growl. Not far. Emma froze instantly. Her body didn't wait for thought, it reacted. She crouched behind a twisted piece of wreckage, scanning through the smoke. Again. Closer. This time, another joined it. Then another. Her pulse sharpened. Wolves. But something was wrong. These weren't the clean, territorial predators she had seen in training footage. These were changed. Their bodies were lean to the point of starvation, ribs pushing against their skin like sharp edges. Their fur was patchy, stained with mud, scars cutting across their limbs. One had a damaged eye that didn't close properly. They weren't hunting for sport. They were hunting because they had nothing left to lose. Emma slowly exhaled. 3 wolves stepped into view. Then 5. Then more behind them. The jungle had brought witnesses, and they were all hungry. She raised her pistol. Her hands were steady, but not calm. Calm was gone. What remained was focus sharpened into something dangerous. "Don't come closer," she whispered. The wolves didn't understand language, but they understood weakness. One stepped forward, then another. Emma fired. The gunshot cracked through the jungle like a whip. One wolf dropped instantly. The others didn't retreat. They advanced faster. That was the mistake. This wasn't a pack that feared pain. This was a pack that had learned to ignore it. Emma fired again. Another fell. But now they were rushing. From the left. From the right. From behind the wreckage. Emma moved backward through the broken helicopter remains, stepping over twisted metal and burning fragments. Every shot counted now. Every breath mattered. A wolf lunged from the side. Too fast. It slammed into her shoulder, knocking her down hard. Her pistol skidded across the ground. Gone. For a second, everything went silent again. Just her breathing, and teeth snapping inches from her face. She grabbed a loose metal rod from the wreckage and drove it forward instinctively. The wolf recoiled, snarling, blood dripping from its muzzle. Emma rolled away, coughing, scrambling for distance. Her pistol was still nearby. But so were they. 3 wolves closed in. Then 4. She could feel it, the shift. This was no longer survival. This was containment. The jungle had marked her. Emma reached for her sidearm again, fingers brushing mud and broken glass. She pulled it free just as a wolf charged. One shot. The wolf dropped midair. But the click that followed froze her. Empty chamber. 7 bullets. Now gone. The silence that followed was worse than the gunfire. The wolves stopped. They didn't retreat. They just watched. As if they knew. Emma stood slowly. Rain began to fall through the canopy above, heavy and cold, mixing with smoke and ash. It blurred the world into shifting shadows. Her pistol hung useless in her hand. No ammo. No backup. No extraction. Only jungle. And something inside it that wanted her to understand one final truth. She wasn't lost in the jungle. She was being hunted by it. And the night was just beginning. The rain arrived like punishment. Not gentle, not seasonal, violent, relentless sheets of water that hammered through the jungle canopy and turned the world into a blur of green and shadow. The smoke from the crashed helicopter thinned, but the heat of the wreckage still hissed in the wet air like something alive refusing to die. Emma Carter didn't move. She stayed low beneath the twisted remains of metal, listening. Because in the jungle, silence was never empty. It was loaded. Every drop of rain hitting leaves sounded like footsteps. Every branch bending sounded like something shifting its weight. The environment itself felt like it had turned into a predator, one that didn't show itself all at once. It revealed itself slowly, patiently, like it enjoyed fear building before the kill. Emma checked her pistol again, even though she already knew the truth. Empty. 7 rounds gone, all spent in the first contact. Now it was just weight, dead metal. She exhaled slowly through her nose, forcing control. Panic was a luxury soldiers didn't survive with. Her training started breaking everything down into pieces. Cover distance, escape routes. But the jungle didn't offer clean lines of retreat. It was chaos disguised as structure. Behind her, something shifted. Not loud. Just wrong. Emma turned her head slightly. Through the rain and smoke, she saw movement along the broken helicopter fuselage. A shape crawling, then another above it. Her eyes narrowed. Not wolves. Something different. A massive jungle monitor lizard slid across the twisted metal, its scales slick with rain, its tongue flicking in quick, tasting movements. It paused, sensing heat from the wreckage, eyes cold and indifferent. Emma stayed still. Predators didn't always need to be aggressive. Sometimes they just needed opportunity. Below her, the wolves were still there. But now they weren't rushing. They were reorganizing, circling wider, cutting angles, learning her position. Emma realized something that tightened her chest more than any physical injury. They weren't just hunting her. They were coordinating. The jungle wasn't random anymore. It was tactical. A low growl rolled through the rain. Then another answered it from the opposite side. The wolves were communicating. Emma slowly shifted her position behind a broken panel of metal, trying to keep elevation advantage. Her boots sank slightly into mud, but she didn't move faster. Speed creates noise. Noise creates location. And location creates death. A sudden crack of thunder split the sky. In that instant of noise, the jungle changed again. The wolves moved. Vast. Emma reacted instantly, rolling out from cover as the first wolf slammed into the wreckage where she had been seconds earlier. Metal screamed as claws tore across it. She fired instinctively. Nothing. Empty weapon. She threw it aside. It was useless now. A second wolf lunged from the left. Emma dropped low, grabbed a jagged piece of broken helicopter frame and swung it upward. It connected with bone and teeth in a brutal impact. The wolf recoiled, whining, stumbling back into the mud. But there was no time to finish it. Another was already coming. Emma backed away into the open jungle floor, rain soaking her uniform completely. Visibility dropped further. The world became shapes and movement instead of form. Then she heard it. Not the wolves. Something heavier. Something packing above her. She looked up. The monitor lizard had descended closer to ground level, attracted by the chaos, its body moving like a slow machine built for endurance rather than speed. It wasn't hunting her. It was waiting for leftovers. Emma understood the hierarchy immediately. Wolves below, scavenger above, and her in the middle. The perfect signal of vulnerability. Another wolf charged. Emma sidestepped, grabbed its neck mid-motion, and used its momentum to slam it into a tree root. The impact stunned it but didn't end it. These animals weren't weak. They were adapted. An adaptation in the jungle meant survival at any cost. Emma stood breathing hard, chest rising sharply. Her arm burned from earlier injury, blood mixing with rainwater. Every movement now cost energy she didn't have. The wolves regrouped again. Now tighter. Now closer. They had stopped testing her. They had started closing in. Emma looked around quickly. No clean exit. No high ground. Only deeper jungle. The worst option. But also the only one. Another growl came from behind her. She turned. Too late. A wolf slammed into her from the side, knocking her into the mud. She hit hard, air forced out of her lungs. Her vision blurred for a second. Teeth snapped inches from her face. She grabbed its jaws with both hands, struggling against raw strength. The wolf pushed down, saliva mixing with rain, pressure increasing. Emma's muscles trembled. Not fear. Fatigue. The jungle was wearing her down. But instinct doesn't die easily in soldiers. She twisted her body sharply, breaking the wolf's balance and shoved it aside into the mud. It recovered quickly, but that moment gave her space. Space meant movement. Movement meant survival. She rolled to her feet and ran. Not toward safety. There was no safety. Just direction. She pushed into the jungle itself. Deeper. Thicker. More hostile. Branches whipped her face. Roots tried to trip her. The ground shifted unpredictably under her boots. Every step was resistance. Behind her, the wolves followed. Not fast. Not reckless. Persistent. Like they knew she would tire before they would. Thunder rolled again overhead, shaking the canopy. The jungle canopy trembled. And something changed in Emma's perception. The deeper she ran, the more the forest felt aware. Not magical. Not supernatural. Strategic. Like she had stepped into territory that had been used before. Paths that weren't natural. Clearings that felt too intentional. She slowed slightly, scanning ahead. A narrow gap between massive tree roots appeared. A natural tunnel. But too clean. Too convenient. Emma stopped. The wolves behind her did not. They paused at the edge of it. Waiting. That was when she understood the worst part. This wasn't random terrain anymore. This was a controlled hunting ground. And she had just stepped into its center. The lead wolf stepped forward again. Rain poured harder. The jungle closed in. Emma tightened her fists. No ammo. No radio. No team. Just instinct. And whatever she became next. The wolf charged. And the jungle held its breath. The wolf didn't hesitate. It exploded forward through the rain-soaked jungle like a living missile, muscles cutting through mud and shadow. The rest of the pack followed, but this one, the lead, was different. Scarred, heavier, more intelligent. It wasn't just attacking. It was finishing. Emma Carter saw it coming in fragments. The glint of teeth, the splash of mud, the narrowing tunnel of jungle closing around her like a trap finally snapping shut. She had no bullets. No weapon. Only seconds. Her body reacted before thought could form. She dropped sideways as the wolf lunged, its jaws snapping inches from her throat. It collided with a tree root instead, shaking the ground with impact. Bark exploded into splinters. Emma rolled through the mud, coming up on one knee. Breathing hard. Eyes locked forward. The pack was entering now. Not rushing. Not chaotic. Coordinated. They were pushing her into the narrow jungle passage, forcing her deeper between massive roots that formed a tunnel-like corridor. It wasn't escape. It was funneling. Emma realized it instantly. They're hurting me. Her voice barely came out. The jungle wasn't just hunting her anymore. It was guiding her. Another wolf came from the left. Emma grabbed a fallen branch instinctively and swung. The impact cracked against the wolf's snout, sending it sideways, but it didn't stop the momentum of the pack. She backed deeper into the root tunnel. Rain thundered overhead, turning the entire world into a vibrating roar. Visibility dropped to near zero. Everything became movement, sound, instinct. Then, a new sound. Not wolves. Not rain. Something heavier. A slow, dragging presence above the canopy again. Emma looked up briefly. The monitor lizard was still there. Watching. Following. Not involved. Just waiting for collapse. A scavenger at the edge of war. Perfect, Emma muttered bitterly. Below, the wolves advanced. The tunnel tightened. Roots curved inward like ribs of a giant buried creature. Mud deepened. Every step pulled at her boots like hands trying to hold her in place. The lead wolf entered first. Emma didn't retreat. She charged. It was not a fight anymore. It was survival stripped down to instinct. Emma slammed into the wolf mid-charge, using its momentum against it. They hit the ground hard. She grabbed its neck with both hands, straining against its weight, its teeth snapping dangerously close to her face. She pushed harder. The wolf resisted. Muscle against muscle. Human against predator. Rain blurred everything into chaos. Behind them, the pack hesitated, but only for a moment. Then they moved in again. Emma saw it. This was the end phase. They weren't waiting anymore. They were finishing. She twisted sharply, rolling the wolf beneath her, forcing its jaw away. Her forearm burned as teeth scraped across it, but she didn't stop. Pain didn't matter anymore. Only survival. She grabbed a jagged rock half buried in the mud and drove it down. The wolf convulsed, then went still. Silence cracked through the moment like lightning. Emma didn't celebrate. She stood immediately, because the others were already there. 3 wolves now blocking the tunnel exit behind her. 2 more closing from the sides. The jungle had sealed her in. Emma backed up slowly. Her breathing was heavy now, controlled but strained. Her body was running on borrowed strength. Every muscle screamed for rest, but rest meant death. Thunder rolled again. The canopy trembled, and something shifted deeper in the jungle. The wolves stopped moving. Not fear. Not retreat. Anticipation. Emma frowned slightly. What now? Then she heard it. A low vibration through the ground. At first she thought it was thunder. But it wasn't above her. It was below. The jungle floor trembled slightly as something massive shifted nearby, distant, but real. A presence large enough to disturb the ecosystem itself. Even the wolves reacted. One stepped back. Another lowered its head. Uncertainty. Emma felt it too. The hierarchy was changing. Something else had entered the system. The monitor lizard above shifted slightly on a branch, its body tensing for the first time. It was no longer just watching. It was alert. Emma slowly turned her head. Through the rain and roots, deeper into the tunnel ahead. She saw movement. Not wolves. Not lizard. Something larger. Something unseen but felt. A heavy presence in the jungle that didn't rush, didn't panic, didn't chase. It owned space. The wolves began to withdraw slightly, tension breaking their formation. Not fear. Respect. Emma's mind raced. What is that? The ground vibration grew stronger. Closer. The jungle itself seemed to quiet in response. Even the rain felt heavier, more distant. Then, a massive shape shifted between the trees deeper, inside the tunnel. Too large to be a wolf. Too solid to be a predator pack. Emma stepped back instinctively. The wolves finally broke formation completely, pulling away from her position. Not fleeing the jungle, but retreating from something inside it. Emma was left standing alone in the tunnel. Breathing hard. Soaked. Bleeding. Unarmed. And now, something else was approaching. Slowly. Deliberately. The jungle wasn't finished with her. It had simply escalated the rules. Emma whispered, barely audible. This just got worse. A shadow moved again deeper in the tunnel. And this time, it answered her presence. The jungle stopped pretending. The rain still fell, but it no longer felt random. It felt like a curtain drawn over something much older, something heavier, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Emma Carter stood in the root tunnel, soaked to the bone, her body shaking from exhaustion more than fear now. The wolves had withdrawn deeper into the shadows, their presence still there but no longer dominant. Because something else had arrived. Something that didn't need to prove it was dangerous. It simply was. A low vibration rolled through the ground again, slower this time, deliberate, like footsteps too heavy for normal animal life. The roots around her seemed to tighten visually, like the jungle was focusing its attention inward. Emma slowly backed up one step. Then another. Her instincts screamed the same thing over and over. Don't run forward. But there was nowhere else to go. Behind her, the wolf pack remained silent, watching from the edge of the tunnel. Even the monitor lizard above had gone still, frozen in place on a thick branch. Predators don't freeze unless something above them is present. Emma swallowed hard. Okay, she whispered, show yourself. The response was not immediate. The jungle liked delay. Then the shadows ahead shifted. Not fast. Not sudden. A massive shape moved between the trees, partially hidden, partially revealed. It was too large to be a wolf, too structured to be a wild beast without pattern. The movement was controlled, almost familiar. Emma's eyes narrowed. Military instinct tried to categorize it. Animal, human, machine. None fit cleanly. Then it stepped into partial light. A massive silhouette. Not one creature, but several shapes moving together in coordinated silence. Large, trained, organized. Emma's breath caught. No, she muttered, that's not natural. A second later, a faint metallic glint flashed through the rain. And everything clicked. This wasn't the jungle's apex predator. This was something that had been using the jungle. Tracks, controlled movement patterns, coordinated pressure on prey. The wolves weren't the top of the chain. They were being directed. Emma tightened her jaw. This is a hunting unit. Her voice barely formed. And then it stepped forward fully. A figure emerged from the shadows, not a beast but a heavily camouflaged human silhouette. Gear designed for jungle operations, masked face, tactical posture, silent movement. Behind it, more shapes. Not wild animals. Operators. Someone had been here before her. And they were still here. Watching. Waiting. The wolves didn't attack them. They didn't even growl. They stayed back like trained perimeter assets. Emma's mind raced faster than her body could keep up. This wasn't a crash, it was a drop zone. Her voice cracked slightly. A deliberate insertion into hostile terrain. But she wasn't part of the plan anymore. She was the variable that got lost. The lead figure tilted its head slightly, observing her. No emotion visible behind the mask, just evaluation. Then a calm voice came through, a directional comm, distorted by jungle interference. Survivor confirmed. Emma stiffened. Survivor. That wasn't how it was supposed to sound. Not rescue. Not relief. Classification. The second voice followed. Asset deviation, non-authorized presence. Emma stepped back instinctively. Asset, she repeated quietly. The figure raised a hand slightly, not threatening but controlling. The wolves shifted again in the background, responding subtly to the gesture. That was the moment Emma understood the full truth. The jungle wasn't hunting her. It was part of a system. And she had fallen into the wrong side of it. Identify yourself, the voice ordered. Emma didn't answer immediately. Her mind was calculating options. None were good. Ammo gone. No extraction signal. Surrounded. Controlled perimeter. Even the wildlife was being influenced. This wasn't survival anymore. It was containment. She slowly straightened. "I'm U.S. Army," she said firmly. "Lost during crash. I need extraction." A pause. The figure didn't react. Then, negative. One word. Final. Emma's stomach tightened. "What do you mean, negative?" The operator tilted its head slightly again. "You were not scheduled for recovery." That sentence hit harder than any attack she had survived that night. Emma blinked once. "I wasn't scheduled." Silence. Only rain answered. The wolves remained still behind her. The jungle felt like it had shifted again, not alive but aligned. Emma exhaled slowly, shaking her head slightly. "This wasn't a crash site," she whispered. "It was a controlled operation zone." The truth didn't come gently. It landed all at once. She wasn't lost. She had been dropped into something that was already active. And she had survived long enough to become a problem. The operator took a step forward. Emma immediately tightened her stance, even without a weapon. Instinct refused to die. The figure raised a hand again. "Stand down," the voice ordered. Emma's eyes sharpened. "No," she said quietly. A pause. That seemed unexpected. Even the wolves shifted slightly. The operator studied her for a moment. Then something changed in the tone. Not aggression. Interest. Survival response, intact, the voice said. Emma frowned. "What are you talking about?" A long pause followed. Then, "You adapted." That word hung in the air. Adapted. Not survived. Not escaped. Adapted. Emma slowly looked around, the wolves, the jungle, the operator unit, the controlled silence of it all. Then back at them. "I didn't adapt," she said coldly. "I just didn't die." For the first time, something like acknowledgement passed through the operator's stance. A small shift. Respect or recalculation. The jungle wind moved through the tunnel, brushing leaves like whispers. The system had changed again. Emma wasn't prey anymore. Not fully. Not yet. She was something in between. The operator stepped back slightly, then turned toward the darkness. A signal was given. The wolves began to withdraw completely. The monitor lizard disappeared into the canopy. The tunnel slowly emptied of pressure, like a held breath released. Emma stood alone in the rain-soaked root corridor. Still alive. Still standing. But nothing about this felt like survival anymore. The operator's voice echoed, one last time through the jungle calm. "Extraction not approved." A pause. Then, "Asset reclassification pending." The figures melted back into the jungle. Silent. Controlled. Gone. And just like that, Emma Carter realized the night was never trying to kill her. It was testing what she could become if it didn't. She lowered her head slightly. Rain ran down her face. And for the first time since the crash, she understood. This jungle wasn't an accident. It was a system. And she had just been accepted into.